Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Briefing. After China comprehensively upgraded its rare earth export measures, some US officials have become rather flustered. In particular, Treasury Secretary Yellen has called on America's allies to unite and take action against China. But when it comes to decoupling from China, Australia is the first to disagree. According to reports from ABC and the Australian Financial Review on October 17th, Australia's Treasurer Jim Chalmers, who was visiting Washington, D.C. at the time, stated that Australia might be able to help. That the weak links in the global critical mineral supply chain should be clearly opposed to the decoupling rhetoric put forward by the Trump administration last week. Chalmers emphasized that it is extremely important for Australia to strike a balance between its largest trading partner, China, and its closest ally, the United States. He said that Australia will continue to cooperate with all its trading partners based on its own national interests. For Australia, maximizing its interests relies on expanding trade, not on setting up more trade barriers. When asked whether he was worried that Australia might be forced to choose sides between the two superpowers, Chalmers said he believes Washington is well aware of the efforts Australia has made to maintain stable economic relations with China. He said, "We also believe that the United States understands that this economic relationship can bring mutual benefits to both Australia and the US, and that it is beneficial for Australian workers and businesses. It's also a good thing for investors," Chalmers further stated. He said that given the golden opportunities that critical minerals bring to Australia, he believes Australia can strike a good balance between these two important relationships. He said, "We are fully capable of cooperating in both areas, that is, with China and with the US at the same time. This is in line with Australia's national economic interests. They already have extensive cooperation with the US, and in the future, they can expand into even more areas, with critical minerals being one of them." According to a report by the Australian Financial Review, Chalmers also revealed that, in addition to meeting with US officials and officials from the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, IMF, he will also travel to New York to hold talks with heads of asset management institutions aiming to promote Australia as a global export destination. He said that there is currently a pressing demand from countries around the world, and Australia happens to possess a wealth of the resources they need. Whether it's critical minerals or the skills and resilience of the domestic workforce, even though the international environment is currently complex and ever-changing with challenges arising one after another, Australia's own advantages are particularly prominent. Before holding talks with the White House National Economic Council Director Hassett, Chalmers also revealed that he would discuss Australia's abundant critical mineral resources with the US side. He said that when it comes to critical minerals, Australia can offer a lot to the world. He stated, "We know that American companies are in urgent need of critical minerals, and Australia is fully capable of meeting this demand. Australia is working with its partners to ensure that they become a reliable supplier for the critical mineral needs of Australia, the United States, and other global markets." Chalmers also said he has no doubt that on October 20th, when Australian Prime Minister Albanese holds his first official bilateral meeting with US President Trump at the White House, this issue will definitely be brought up. He said, "We won't disclose the specific details of the Prime Minister's meeting with the US President next week in advance, but what is clear is that the US side is interested in Australia's critical minerals." He added that in recent months they have already had multiple discussions with the US side, and they will ensure that Australia fully seizes this absolute golden opportunity. According to the report, Chalmers' remarks are intended to emphasize that Australia has the capability to become a key part of the United States' efforts to diversify the rare earth supply chain and reduce dependence on China. The report states that rare earths are crucial for various fields, including semiconductors and military technology. Australia possesses the world's fourth largest rare earth reserves and has a long history of mining, which strengthens its position as a viable alternative to China for rare earth supply. Previously, Lynas Rare Earths, headquartered in Perth, Australia, had already begun refining so-called heavy rare earths at their plant in Malaysia, making it the only heavy rare earth production base outside of China. On October 17th, the Australian reported, citing industry insiders, that the Trump administration is considering acquiring partial equity in Australian rare earth projects. The report stated that the equity investment could come from various United States government agencies, including the Pentagon and the United States Export-Import Bank. Last month, more than a dozen Australian mining companies met with officials from several United States government agencies in Washington to discuss matters related to equity acquisition. The Financial Times also reported on October 12th that the Pentagon is seeking to procure up to $1 billion worth of critical minerals as part of its global stockpiling efforts, aiming to counter China's dominance in key rare earth metals used in defense manufacturing. To summarize briefly, first, the current Albanese government in Australia is quite pragmatic. The US and China's tariff war ended up hurting American agricultural products. Because China implemented reciprocal tariffs in retaliation, the US not only lost the Chinese market for soybeans. The US even lost all of its beef market share in China, and the replacement is Australian beef. In the first 7 months of this year, Australian beef exports surged by 35%, reaching $10 billion Australian dollars, with exports to the Chinese market alone growing by as much as 65%. 5 years ago, when diplomatic relations between China and Australia were poor, trade was also affected. This once dealt a heavy blow to Australia, but now Australia is benefiting from the US-China rivalry, which is enough for the current Australian government to ignore US pressure. Australia doesn't want to decouple from China either. Secondly, when it comes to the rare earth supply chain, Australia will definitely seize the opportunity to aggressively promote itself and offer help to the US. But from China's perspective, it's actually not worried about these countries wavering and playing both sides. As long as they act in their own national interest, they will ultimately choose pragmatism and cooperate with China. For resource-based countries like Australia, only by selling their resources to China, which has the most comprehensive industrial sector, can they secure the most long-term benefits. So does that mean Australia has no way out if it tries to decouple from China? Thirdly, the US is now going all out to break free from its dependence on China in the rare earth supply chain. Will this cause China to lose its trump card in rare earths? Some foreign media have analyzed that the US and the West are heavily investing in developing alternative rare earth supply chains. However, a researcher at an Australian university pointed out that even if the US and all its allies treat rare earth processing as a national project, it would still take them at least 5 years to catch up with China. A BBC article published on October 17th mentioned that China has almost monopolized rare earth processing, and these critical minerals are essential for the production of a range of technologies such as smartphones, solar panels, electric vehicles, and military equipment. For example, it is estimated that an F-35 fighter jet requires over 400 kilograms of rare earths, which are used in its stealth coating, motors, radar, and other components. Limu Isai MacDonald, a lecturer in international business at Edith Cowan University in Australia, said that China's new rare earth regulations, aimed at addressing the vulnerability of the US supply chain, are bound to shake up the entire system. He added that this has indeed disrupted the negotiation timeline that the Americans wanted. Marina Zhang, a critical minerals researcher at the University of Technology, Sydney, pointed out that over the years, China has worked hard to gain a dominant position in global rare earth processing capacity, cultivating a massive workforce in the rare earth sector. She said that her research network is several years ahead of its competitors. Although the United States and other countries are heavily investing in developing alternative rare earth supply sources outside of China, there is still a long way to go before this goal can be achieved. Australia possesses continental rare earth reserves and is seen as a potential challenger to China's rare earth dominance, but its production infrastructure is still underdeveloped, making processing relatively expensive. She admitted that even if the United States and all its allies treat rare earth processing as a national project, she estimates it will take at least 5 years to catch up with China. According to a mainland rare earth industry source, the difficulty in developing rare earths, especially heavy rare earths, lies in production capacity and pricing challenges. For example, even if the US and Western countries work together to extract rare earths within 5 years, how will they refine them? What will they do with refining byproducts? Where will the electricity for processing come from? The insider said, taking heavy rare earths as an example. Gadolinium is mainly extracted from electrolytic aluminum materials. To produce 10,000 tons of aluminum, you can only extract about 20 kilograms of gadolinium. But here's the problem. Producing 10,000 tons of electrolytic aluminum requires about 125 million kilowatt-hours of electricity. If a company produces 20 kilograms of gadolinium, what will they do with the 10,000 tons of aluminum? If there isn't corresponding industrial demand, the cost of that 10,000 tons of aluminum needs to be factored into the production cost of gadolinium. And then there's the 125 million kilowatt-hours of electricity. What economy can afford that? It's not so easy to provide 125 million kilowatt-hours of electricity. Whether in the US or Australia, no matter where you want to set up a rare earth factory, you have to overcome the challenge of electricity supply. The conclusion is that China is confident in its dominance, and when it comes time to act, they also have a bottom-line mindset and have prepared for this. In 5 years, the West may be able to establish a certain level of rare earth supply capacity, but only at a much higher cost. China will use these 5 years to make breakthroughs in all aspects, completely freeing itself from the constraints imposed by the West.